Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Front Page by AM Network. I'm Antara. It is a busy Monday. NVIDIA has rallied 50 tech giants to push back on the White House over open weight AI. And Bank of Baroda, on the other hand, is dealing with an alleged 1 terabyte data breach. We are tracking all of it, and a lot more. But first, a massive update for the developers and AI builders watching this right now. It is time to step out of the background loop. Google Cloud and AIM have officially announced Code Kitchen Season 1, India's very first coding reality show. We, in fact, are talking a 10 lakh rupee prize pool, the season best trophy and national video frame across an 8-episode video reality series. Registrations are live right now at codekitchen.aim.media. Submit your concept note and secure your spot under the lights today. With that, let's get straight into the headlines. Gujarat is officially India's top destination for business, taking the #1 spot on NITI Aayog's Investment Friendliness Index. Student protests over the NEET exam have turned Jantar Mantar into a high-tech battleground, showcasing how digital tools are reshaping modern policing and live censorship. NVIDIA has rallied 50 tech giants to defend open-weight AI, pushing back against recent White House claims, even as rivals like Anthropic and Amazon stay silent. Morgan Stanley predicts a massive boom for India's manufacturing sector, projecting it will nearly triple to a staggering $1.5 trillion by 2035. Bank of Baroda has allegedly been hit by a massive 1 terabyte data breach. Hackers claim to have dumped customer account details, loan records, and sensitive identity data online. Skye Air Mobility CEO Ankit Kumar will join AIM front page anchor Sudhi Sajdev to discuss conquering drone delivery bottlenecks, building digital sky highways, and expanding India's autonomous aerial logistics revolution into the United States. As India chases its Viksit Bharat 2047 target, a new scorecard for the states just landed, and it's putting one state firmly in the spotlight. Now, to stay updated on such stories that shape industries and economies, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's get into the bigger picture here. Gujarat has been rated India's most investor-friendly state. It in fact topped NITI Aayog's very first investment friendliness index released earlier this month. The index is now being positioned as the government's own answer to a global benchmark that no longer exists. The idea essentially goes back to the year 2024. At NITI Aayog's 9th Governing Council meeting, the Prime Minister asked for an investment-friendly charter for the states. It was then formally announced as a reform tool in the Union Budget for 2025-26. The index essentially covers all 28 states and 8 union territories. Each is scored out of 100, built from 84 indicators spread across 8 pillars. Those pillars run from infrastructure and business climate to regulatory ease, government policy, financial health, institutional environment resources, and of course, environmental resilience. Now, to build it, NITI Aayog surveyed more than 1,850 investors and drew on input from 165 stakeholders. Now, among India's large states, Gujarat came out on top with a score of 56.6. Maharashtra followed at 53.7. Tamil Nadu came third at 53.3. States are sorted into 4 bands based on their score. A score above 50 makes a state a top performer, and only 5 states got there, namely Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Goa, and Odisha. A score between 45 to 50 is a frontrunner. 15 states landed in that band. 8 states or union territories were classed as emerging performers, and another 8 as aspiring states. The report points to a handful of specific strengths. Gujarat's single window investor system run through the Industrial Extension Bureau is one of them. The state has also built a time-bound process for statutory approvals and no objection certificates. Restrictions on strikes and essential services are credited with keeping industrial relations stable. On the infrastructure front, Gujarat has the country's longest estimated expressway network at 635 kilometers. Close to 7% of India's entire rail network runs through the state. And of course, on the power front, industrial consumers in Gujarat pay tariffs nearly 29% below the national average, with close to 24 hours of daily supply on the offer. Now, here's the broader picture, viewers. Among hilly and northeastern states, Uttarakhand, in fact, came out on the top, ahead of Assam and Himachal Pradesh. Among union territories and city-states, Goa led, followed by Delhi and Chandigarh. NITI Aayog has been careful to frame this as a reform tool rather than a competition. The index also marks a shift away from the World Bank's ease of doing business rankings, which were discontinued some years ago. This one is being called an indigenous data-driven methodology built for India's own needs. And the race isn't settled below the top three either. Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Haryana and Kerala are all bunched within a single point of each other among the frontrunners. Ladies and gentlemen, here of course is the front page take on this. What's notable is how quickly this ranking has been folded into the larger Viksit Bharat pitch. It's a fresh homegrown number that state governments can now use to sell themselves to investors, and one the centre can point to as proof of its model of competitive federalism and that the fact that it is working. So here's the question that I would like to ask you all. Do indices like this actually capture what it's like to do business on the ground in a state? Or do they mostly reward states that are better at reporting good numbers rather than genuinely reforming? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by AM Network. Like, share and subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. For weeks now, Jantar Mantar in Delhi has been the center of one of India's biggest student movement in years. The protesters had been demanding accountability over the NEET paper leak and the resignation of the Union Education Minister. But alongside the politics, something else has also been playing out. The tech override at the center of the protest. And because the next technological shift starts with stories like these, make sure to like, share and subscribe. With that, let's break the story down. In May of 2025, digital strategist Abhijit Deepke turned a dismissive comment about students by CJ Suryakant into a satirical page called Cockroach Janata Party. It then became the biggest youth mobilization Delhi has seen in years, joined by student unions across the country. It was supercharged when activist Sonam Wangchuk sat down for a 26-day hunger strike that only ended after the government finally blinked and acknowledged the dissent on the grounds of the national capital and across the country as well. When mobile internet was suspended around the protest site, demonstrators turned to BitChat. It is a Bluetooth mesh messaging app built by Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey that lets nearby phones exchange messages without any internet connection at all. That workaround did not really sit well with the authorities. The Home Ministry's cybercrime arm, the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, ordered GitHub to take down BitChat's source code, arguing that decentralized, hard-to-monitor communication could be misused during unrest. Dorsey responded on X saying that, and he stated quite plainly that Indian government doesn't like technologies like BitChat and wants them taken down. Multiple users across platforms called the order unconstitutional and demanded it to be withdrawn. Furthermore, the app wasn't the only thing facing removal. Students at IIT Madras posted a solidarity video for the protesters. And within days, they say that their faculty advisor received a call and then all the posts came down. Delhi University and JNU sent their own student advisories warning them to steer clear of irresponsible social media activity. This is how it was coded. A post referencing the protests was formally withheld on X in India under legal notice. CJP's own official Instagram page went inaccessible at one point as well. Nobody is calling it censorship out loud, of course. It's just a series of unrelated coincidences involving deans, involving lawyers, and Instagram, all pointed at the same protest, all in the same 3 weeks. Now, of course, there was this another instance to look at. A video from July 20th protest showed additional DCP Sandeep Lamba appearing to slap a woman protester. He was in fact pulled from the site afterward, presumably for optics, since a Trinamool MP is now demanding an FIR against him. Delhi police, for its part, denies any pattern of brutality. And then, of course, is the plot twist, where Lamba turned up back at the protest site days later wearing Meta's AI smart glasses. The same officer caught on camera hitting a protester, now wearing a camera of his own. If there is a more accidentally perfect metaphor for this entire protest, we haven't found it. Delhi police had parked at least 2 specialized vehicles near the protest site. One streamed live CCTV footage, the other ran AI facial recognition with footage circulating online, appearing to show faces and names lighting up on the screen inside, as if the crowd were a lineup instead of a group of students holding placards. A petition is now before the Delhi High Court, arguing that this violates protesters' basic rights. The government Solicitor General Tushar Mehta told the court that this is just quote-unquote routine policing and dismissed the petition as quote-unquote luxury litigation. And luxury litigation is certainly one way to describe asking why the state is running your face through a database for showing up to a protest. And through all of it, someone sent a local company to install free Wi-Fi at the protest site the moment mobile internet got cut. There was no press release, no ministry approval, just cables and a router. Because apparently keeping thousands of students connected was a job that the government left wide open. Many content creators, many influencers, Bollywood celebrities leveraged their platform to amplify the cause. In fact, Shriyam Rakheja was one such name who made a diligent use of a platform to facilitate the delivery of daily essentials like tissues and mosquito repellents and sanitary napkins, sanitizers, antifungal ointments to the protest site. For those who couldn't travel to the protest site, online petitions paved the way. Emails urging the resignation were flooding across the internet. An online petition demanding Pradhan's resignation eventually collected more than 8 lakh signatures. And then, on July 25th, Dharmendra Pradhan posted his resignation on X himself, saying that he had sent the letter of resignation to the Prime Minister so that anti-national forces couldn't take advantage of the situation at Jantar Mantar and across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the front page take on the story. Let's be honest about what this actually looks like. It was a movement of students asking why their exams got sold on Telegram. Then they met with facial recognition vans, an app takedown order, and a quiet word to university deans, and unimaginable amount of brutality, whether the police was to agree with it or not. We have all seen the videos. That's not a security response to a public safety threat. It was the fastest way to make people asking for accountability be harder to see, be harder to hear and find. What ultimately felt like a win to the entire community protesting was echoed differently by the Solicitor General in court. Their cause became disruption, while the actions of the centre was narrated as surveillance and standard policing to maintain order at large. Whether it survives contact with a courtroom or with a van, quietly running faces through a database is a completely different question. But here's one question that I would like to ask you all. When the government's tech response to student protesters is bigger than its response to something as serious as exam leak that really started all of it, whose side does that actually tell you it's on? Let us know what you think in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by AI Network. Like, share and subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AI. 2 days ago, we told you the White House accused a Chinese lab of stealing from Anthropic's Fable model. Today, NVIDIA led a coalition of 25 companies arguing the exact opposite point, that the technique behind that accusation isn't theft at all. This is just how AI gets built. Now, if you are following the AI race as closely as we are, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. NVIDIA published an open letter titled Open Weights and American AI Leadership. 25 signatories initially: Meta, Microsoft, IBM, Dell, Hugging Face, Andreessen, Horowitz, and of course, Linux Foundation and more. Let that sink in, viewers, because within days, that list doubled to 50, adding Google, adding OpenAI, AMD, and many more. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang fronted the effort with his first ever post on X. The world needs leading closed models and leading open models alike. Now here's the detail that makes the story genuinely interesting. Anthropic did not sign, neither did Amazon. Google was initially absent too before joining the expanded list just days later. Anthropic has argued separately that open weight models carry a specific risk. Once released, access cannot be easily revoked if something goes wrong. The three biggest closed frontier labs skipping this letter isn't really a coincidence. They are also the companies with the most to lose if cheaper open alternatives get treated as legally equivalent to their own paid models. So what's the substance here really? The letter's central case. American AI leadership won't be judged by one frontier model, but by whether the US builds a broad open ecosystem. Open weights lets startups, universities, and hospitals use advanced AI without training a model from scratch or paying frontier prices for every task. And on security, the letter makes a pointed counter-argument. Concentrating AI behind a small number of closed models creates single points of failure. Openness, it argues, may be more secure than obscurity, not less. Now, here's where this letter collides head-on with its week's other headline. The letter explicitly defends distillation, which is essentially the technique of training one model using another's outputs, calling it a quote-unquote widely used technique for model improvement, evaluation, and validation. Their own words, policymakers should be careful not to conflate legitimate model development techniques with misappropriation. Now that is a direct, even if it is unnamed, rebuttal to White House's accusation against Moonshot AI, which claimed that Kimi K3 was built by distilling Anthropic's Fable model. The letter never names China, Moonshot, or DeepSeek even once. But its timings 4 days later, after that banned discussion resurfaced, speaks for itself. Now here's the part worth being direct about. NVIDIA's position isn't purely philosophical. NVIDIA sells chips. It doesn't matter to NVIDIA's bottom line whether the workload running on those chips is a closed American frontier model or not. Or even if it is an open Chinese one being fine-tuned by a startup in Austin. More open models, more fine-tuning, more deployment everywhere means more GPU demand. Full stop. That doesn't make the letter's arguments wrong by themselves. Concentrating AI power behind 3 or 4 closed labs genuinely is a real competitive and security risk worth debating. But it is worth noticing whose interests align neatly with keep everything open philosophy. The hardware maker, always. The closed labs facing open competition, less so, which is exactly why Anthropic sat this one out. Now, let's take a step back and zoom out. The White House accused Moonshot of distilling Anthropic's Fable. OpenAI's own agent went rogue, triggering a kill switch bill, and now 50 companies are telling Washington not to overreact to Chinese open models at all. Every AI safety and competition debate this month keeps landing on the same fault line. Who gets to decide where openness ends and theft begins? Ladies and gentlemen, here's the front page take on this story. This is Silicon Valley's biggest hardware company, publicly pushing back against Washington's own national security framing. Days after that framing named one of NVIDIA's own AI partners as the victim. The question is this coalition genuinely protecting American AI's competitive ecosystem, or is it chip industry's self-interest dressed up as a leadership argument at Anthropic's expense? Let us know what you think in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by AM Network. Like, share, and subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AI. Global investment banks are placing a big bet on India's factories, and Morgan Stanley just put a number on it. But before that, for more such stories on the technology shaping tomorrow, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. India's manufacturing sector is set to nearly triple over the next decade. Morgan Stanley expects it to grow 2.8-fold, thereby reaching $1.5 trillion by 2035. The bank says that the expansion will be driven by policy reforms and stronger infrastructure and rising domestic demand, and of course, India's growing role in global supply chains. Manufacturing currently makes up about 15% of India's GDP. Morgan Stanley expects that particular share to climb to nearly 20% by 2035. Now, to put that in dollar terms, that works out to almost $930 billion added to manufacturing output over the decade. To get there, manufacturing GDP would need to grow at an average of around 9% a year. That is well beyond and well above the 6.5% average pace of the previous 5 years. Morgan Stanley, in fact, points to three main factors here. The first one is government policy. Industrial incentives and rising public capital expenditure have been in place since the year 2019. The second one is India's push to grow its share of global exports and really deepen its integration into the global supply chain. And of course, on number three, we have multinational companies, MNCs essentially, diversifying their manufacturing bases and increasingly choosing India as a destination. The report adds that supportive demographics, rapid urbanization, and improving infrastructure should reinforce all the three trends. Now, Morgan Stanley isn't calling this a sure thing. It flags weaker domestic demand as one risk to the forecast. Political uncertainty is another. So is the pace of reform. Slow implementation of industrial policy could mean that the numbers fall short. And geopolitical developments that dent global demand or investor confidence could weigh on the outcome as well. Now, let me show you the broader picture here. This forecast lines up with a bigger push already underway in the national capital. Reuters, in fact, reported in January that the government wants to nearly triple India's good exports as well to $1.3 trillion by 2035. That plan leans on deregulation rather than heavy subsidies. It is centered on 15 priority sectors from high-end semiconductors to leather. It is being organized through a national manufacturing mission with the center working alongside states on regulation, land access, and finance. Although this isn't the government's first attempt at this. The 2014 Make in India campaign aimed to take manufacturing to 25% of GDP. It did not get there. Neither did a $23 billion incentive package rolled out in 2020. That incentive program, the PLI scheme, has still delivered results of its own. It is about rupees 2.4 lakh crore in actual investment and more than 14 lakh jobs by this March, according to the figures shared in the parliament. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's the front page take on this. What's notable is how much weight is now riding on this one number. A global bank backing India's manufacturing story adds outside credibility to the government's own targets, especially at a moment where just 2 days earlier, there were two attempts at a similar goal that came up short. So here's a question. Is this time genuinely different with deregulation succeeding where subsidies didn't? Or is this just another decade-long target that gets revised down to just the line? Let us know what you think in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by AI Network. Like, share, and subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AI. Bank of Baroda, India's second largest state-run bank, is now at the center of an alleged 1 terabyte data breach. And the leaked files reportedly include customer Aadhaar numbers, account details, and loan records. But before we break down what actually is in this alleged leak, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. With that, let's get right into it. Now, a hacking group calling itself XXX listed Bank of Baroda on its dark web leak site late last week, claiming close to 1 terabyte of stolen data. That reportedly covers customer names, Aadhaar numbers, account and loan details, as well as NRI and corporate banking records, plus internal files like branch audit reports and vigilance investigation records. Sample documents were posted online, and the download link was reportedly still active when researchers checked. Now, XXX blames the break-in on a single weak password on one of the bank's systems. The same group is reportedly linked to a similar attack on Indonesia's Bank Negara Indonesia. None of it is independently verified. Bank of Baroda, the RBI, and CRT have all really stayed quiet about this attack, particularly so far. Now, cybersecurity researcher Shrikant Lakshmanan of Cashless Consumer reviewed the sample files and called it a cyber catastrophe. Beyond that, there's mostly silence, and customers are simply being told to watch their accounts closely. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the front page take on this story. This lands the same week Bank of Baroda stock was already under pressure from a separate one-time accounting charge, and together the two have hit investor sentiment. It's safe to say, ladies and gentlemen, that it is a double whammy for Bank of Baroda. But it is also not an isolated scare, because just last month, researchers found the RBI's own .bank.in domain registry had been leaking bank employee credentials for over a year. And with Bank of Baroda serving more than 180 million customers, a breach, especially at this scale, confirming, even if it is confirmed or not, it touches a massive share of India's banked population. So here's the question I would like to ask all of you. When banks and regulators both go quiet while Aadhaar-linked data may already be circulating online, does India need a mandatory, fast public disclosure law for breaches like this? Let us know what you think in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by AI Network. Like, share and subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adasi, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ml file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Py project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So just this is the app where you have a Py cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker. And these things come automatically. You can click on data store. You can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adasi, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ML file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Py project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So this is the app where you have a Py cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything. That is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker. And these things come automatically. You can click on data store. You can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
Now, in 2019, Ankit Kumar placed orders on several e-commerce platforms just to experience what delivery felt like as a customer. These are, of course, his words, and I quote, "Every step felt broken," he said. Then, of course, somewhere in the middle of all that waiting, I kept looking up at the sky, end quote. Now, today, Skye Air has completed 4 million autonomous deliveries across Delhi, NCR, and Bengaluru. Smartphones, medicines, 9-kilo mattresses delivered, don't want to know where they went, but delivered within 7 minutes. 6,000 packages per day in Gurugram alone. 200 plus approved air corridors, 30 plus patents. Onboarded onto the NVIDIA Inception program in early 2026. Well done. India's logistics costs right now is at about 14% of the GDP, nearly double the global benchmark. Now, last mile delivery accounts for approximately 50% of total transportation costs. Zipline has raised $200 million in March. Amazon Prime Air is scaling in the United States. Well, the race is on. And I'm Ankit Kumar, who is the founder and CEO of Skye Air Mobility. He's definitely a front runner in that race. And he's joining me exclusively on Front Page to tell me if he's tired or not. Welcome to Front Page. How are you doing, Ankit?
All good. How about you?
I'm doing wonderfully well. So I'd like to start there. You're not tired at all, right? As far as the race is on is concerned.
Absolutely. I think it's getting more heated up now as
Nice.
we see that there is a physical AI space emerging and creating tons of excitement around the world.
Nice to know that. Actually, let's start there, Ankit. Let's start with the journey. When you took off, no pun intended, you were looking up at the sky. I remember, as you had mentioned that. Now, who is Skye Air? What motivated you? And what have you built? And why drone delivery is a fundamentally different solution to, let's say, India's logistics problem, rather than just a faster version of the same aspect?
I think fundamentally, when you look at logistics in India, it's very fragmented. It's very broken up. We have the first mile, we have the middle mile, and then we finally have the last mile, which is the most expensive part. And it's been the most expensive part since last 1 decade. Whatever solutions have been created by the e-commerce companies, platforms, which are now being utilized by D2C brands as well, have been created like 10 years, 15 years back. And those network is no longer able to take up the appetite which is now required by the Indian consumers, which have drastically changed in the past 2 years, where the demand for the 10 minutes delivery, the demand for the same hour delivery
Correct.
or 2 hours delivery have risen up like anything, right? I think 6 years back, when I looked up to the sky, And I thought through that, hey, the congestion in the cities is massively going to expand
Sure.
as we are still at the bottom of the pyramid when it considers on the car per thousand households, which are there in the which are there in the paradox of how you see things evolving in the entire space. Look at US, you have 700 cars per thousand households. Look at India, we still are about 100, 150 per thousand households. So the number of cars, the number of vehicles is going to increase massively. But the infrastructure in the cities is super congested.
Sure.
Places like Bengaluru, places like Delhi NCR are highly congested right now.
You can't, Ankit. You can't compare Bengaluru and Delhi NCR. Please, sir. Don't do that.
No,
You're rubbing salt into our wounds, sir.
It's far better than Bengaluru in NCR for sure.
Correct.
But at times, look at the season right now. Like we are in the monsoon, right? The monsoon has hit us finally, and places are getting super clogged.
Correct.
With waterlogging and multiple other issues which are coming in. I think fundamentally to solve a problem, the consumer doesn't need to face a challenge with respect to that, right? If I, as a consumer, want a product to be delivered in much quicker time frame, I need to look up to which are the faster solutions which are available in the market and how I can tap into those faster solutions which can ease the entire process. And look, you picked up one thing which was the biggest thing for me to emerge into starting up Skye Air. I was super happy with my consulting work that I was doing, running my own consulting firm and minting around 75% gross margins and stuff like that.
Bad, sir.
I think what triggered me in the back of my mind is the sheer potential of reducing the 14% logistics cost, which is to the overall product cost, which caters today, reducing that 14% to somewhere around 5%, 6%, which is very doable and which is happening in other parts of the world. Now, if able to tap into the biggest cost differentiator, which is the last mile logistics, and solve that, you're able to impact to the highest degree over there, right? And that's what we picked. Drones today can do the last mile delivery up to 3 rupees. Now, that's the cost. 3 rupees per shipment is what the drones do the whole thing for. And then you have the walker, the runners, who are taking those packages and they cater to about anything around 10 to 12 rupees is what they take. It bills to about 15 odd rupees, which is still cheaper than the conventional means. It's still like 30% cheaper than the conventional means. Today, the conventional means is about 22 rupees, 23 rupees sort of a cost. If you're able to boil down and bring those costs down to a certain level, you're able to impact to a larger level, right?
Fair point.
Also see possibilities, and I also saw possibility, I think 6 years back, with the whole emergence of the physical AI space, eventually with drones and robots and the infrastructure acting and coming together, removing the complete human loop from the whole picture with zero handshakes in between, and the handshakes are only being done between the drone and the robots to do the last leg of the delivery. And that could really bring the total cost from 15 rupees right now to about 5 rupees. And when that happens, that's like huge amount of cost benefit, huge amount of efficiency building that can go in the entire ecosystem. Those are possibilities which excites us every day to go out in the open, to keep on innovating, to keep on trying new things, keep on burning our fingers, and still be able to achieve something greater than what we are doing today.
Ankit, very quickly as a follow-up on what your thought was, when you talked about the last mile bit and the handshake between the drone and the robot, which is nice. But the point I want to ask you is that a lot of other people are not being able to kind of, let's say, come into the same ecosystem as yourself. Is that also to do with the fact that there is a huge stumbling block when it comes down to the capex investment, or is there something else? Because the benefits are clearly there, as you just mentioned.
I don't think just the capex investment. I think it's fundamentally into three different categories, right? A is the technology. To develop something, what we have developed, I think to anybody else, it would take them about 2 years, 2.5 years to develop what we have, right? We have gone into the aspects.
How about you sorry about this, but how about you elaborate for the audience? What is it that you have been able to develop and you've been able to crack it?
Yeah. So, see, I think the fundamental question which was there in front of us back in 2020 is that whether we want to develop the whole drone ourselves or we work with OEMs and just
Right.
focus on developing the subsystems. So, what we did is we did it something very different than what Zipline does or what Mana or Matanet or any other drone delivery company in the world does. We didn't go into manufacturing the whole piece of the drone ourselves.
Wonderful.
We rather relied on the ecosystem which is evolving and which allows us the flexibility to use any platforms and then bridge in and build in subsystems which are very critical for us. So as a company,
Not an easy task though, Ankit. I mean, you taking that leap of faith almost to go into something like this must have been scary, man.
it's super scary. But I think the fun of it is that at the end of the tunnel, you always figure out something which can make a lot of sense and which can really change the landscape of things out here in this country, right?
Sure.
India has always been taken for very much granted when it comes to technology, right? I think whether it's space or drones or anything, we are now proving that thing wrong. Where the engineers are coming out with super high capabilities and turning things around in terms of ensuring that this could really take place and this could really take place in a country like that of India, right? I think it was damn scary because nobody knew that we were going to work around doing things. And I really didn't want it to burn in the capital for anybody else in this whole process. So what we did is for the initial 2 years until we proved the product to ourselves, we kept it bootstrapped. We were fully bootstrapped for the initial 2 years. It was just our money which was going into the company, initial team of 6 members who started believing and who started envisioning what we were going to create for. And then once we got through once we got through the first platform that we built and we started trying out those first platforms, we started creating and we started going to the market and raising our seed capital, where we got the VC's interest coming in, and then they started fueling more towards the ambition that we were carrying.
Nice.
In terms of making that a reality, right? I think the biggest thing out here is that we always had to answer one thing, that what we don't want to do. It's very difficult to get the answer to what we don't want to do, because as a company which is very young, innovative, you always want to do everything.
Correct.
The core fact for us was that we don't want to do everything. We want to do specific things, which makes a lot of difference for us and it creates a value IP for us. So what we did is we focused on only 4 subsystems, anything revolving around connectivity, navigation, autonomy, and safety. Now, these are the 4 subsystems that we develop, which goes on to the drones that we take up from the OEMs that we work with. We integrate these systems and we make them compatible to go into our systems and start working in. Now, that includes a hardware-software mixer.
Sure.
It has got to play with a lot of hardware that we develop on the communication module front. We have got the navigation system. So we are the only drone delivery company in the world who doesn't use cameras. So we don't use cameras or computer vision for any of the deliveries that we conduct today. And that's where we save a lot on the privacy and the national security and other stuff.
Yes.
And we don't breach any of those things. And that's why we get approvals to fly in highly populated areas, corridors, which are thus very hard to get approval from any other perspectives for anyone else to fly in, because we don't have cameras, we don't record anything, we don't click on any pictures. We developed everything on the infrastructure front. So what we developed is a UTM system. UTM is an unmanned traffic management system. It's a large language model based integrated system, which is allowing us to access the airspace, which has got population data, which has got terrain data, which has got weather data coming from the IMD sources. We have got multiple other data sources that we have got in place.
Wonderful.
Which enhances the safety of the systems when it goes to the airspace and flies in. And I think we went into building all those aspects of things, which took us to about 30 proprietary systems across these subsystems that we have built. We today have our own operating system on which the drones are flying. We have got the traffic management system of our own. We also got a walker app. The runners who are taking these packages from the Skye pod, we have got a walker app for them to see and to engage with us and to go and make those deliveries happen for each of the customers that are currently working with. And every leg of the way, it's not that we envisaged or we envisioned each of these things back in 2020. I think as we progressed, we started realizing everything which is manual, let's automate it. Let's pick up
Makes
small
sense.
and automate it and stop moving or stop investing more time into doing that very much manually, right?
Makes sense.
That's the aspect. I think that's the inspiration and innovation which is well ingrained in the team, which is working super hard to ensure that we achieve these things at the end of the day.
Well done, Ankit. Kudos to you and the team for not being scared anymore, actually pushing back and doing wonderfully well, which brings me to this point, which is the fact that India leads global drone delivery markets at 50.4% CAGR. This is ahead of China. Fair? Now, commercial adoption remains concentrated in specific use cases. Now, I want to ask you this, Ankit. India has the policy, it has the growth rate, and definitely it has the ambition. You're one of the flag bearers of that. Now, but what is the single biggest constraint preventing drones from becoming, let's say, mainstream logistics infrastructure? You mentioned cameras, which I think is a great breakthrough. So you don't have permission issues, etc., etc. What are the other aspects?
I think sheer reason for this is the infrastructure piece of it, right? Not every place is suited for the drones to travel across, right?
So you mean to say, for example, just for a reference, Chandni Chowk, you cannot have a drone?
I mean, it can have a drone. So, okay, let's understand this way that everywhere around the world, the drones are solving 1:1 a problem, which is like it's moving one shipment in one flight to one customer, right? What we do here is we are moving 25 shipments to 25 consumers through one flights, right? So there's an aggregating benefit that we are able to drive and provide, and which is helping us to reduce the cost on per shipment level.
Fair point.
The moment we aggregate and do that, right? Now, to aggregate and do that, you have to simply move away from the conventional mechanisms which exist. Now, 95% of the companies in the current scenario in India on the e-commerce front typically works on a pin code level mapping. They don't work on an area level mapping or society level mapping. They work on pin code level mapping. So if you go on your favorite platform and you order anything, right?
It asks for your pin code. True.
Yeah, it gets us to the pin code. Now, the pin code diversity in the country is massive, right? You have selected good housing complexes, very well structured.
Yeah.
You have slum areas. You have unorganized structures which are there as well.
Correct.
Right? Building infrastructure in these places becomes very cumbersome, becomes very tiring. And at certain times, you take a lot of time to take approvals from the right authority to put up the sky pods. That's our infrastructure layer, which is there.
Correct.
Right? So for these areas to be enabled to receive the packages through drone, you need to put the ground infrastructure. Now, that's a time-taking element which is there, because that requires a RWA to approve it.
Yep.
That requires a huge amount of processes to be followed. And once you set up this entire thing, you enable this entire thing in the backend systems to the consumer, and you map each of these things to go in these particular areas. We did that in Gurgaon. It took us initially good amount of time. Now, the replicating that in Delhi, replicating that in Noida, Greater Noida, Ghaziabad, we are even in Meerut right now. Meerut, we are soon opening up Jaipur and other areas. We are already there in Bangalore.
Nice.
You know, the replicating of this is becoming much quicker and much easier for us.
Because there's a use case for the government authorities as well.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, there is a use case for government authorities. We work with India Post. We have recently been working with India Post in Himachal, in Assam, in Gurgaon, and other locations, right, to move the shipments for the same day delivery that we have been catering, and we have been providing that speed element which is required for the consumers who are utilizing India Post. And let me take a moment on that. Like,
please,
the Department of Post today, I think, is embarking towards becoming the most innovative entity in terms of utilizing the technology to the core of it and ensuring that it is able to cater to each and every layer of the market, whether it's the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4, and reaching out to the remotest corners of the country.
Nice.
Now, that's an innovation that the government has taken up so well. And entities like Department of Post, the ministries, are really embarking on these things and supporting such kind of technology, which has never ever happened, right? So I think now is the time, probably I think 2026 and 2027 is going to be the more defining year for drone to take off to a larger scale. By 2030, this is my estimation, by 2030, 25% of the deliveries of last mile in India will be done through drones.
Wow.
That's what we are hinting towards and going toward. I'm not saying that drones will be there in
jump.
100 cities in this country, but drones will be certainly there in like 50 cities in this country, right? And those 50 cities has the enough amount of volume to provide for drones to become the most cheapest means of transportation. It is the most cheapest means of transport.
Fair point, Ankit, and thank you so much for highlighting that bit about India Post, because generally speaking, the moment one talks about a government organization, etc., how the general thought process tends to go as far as the population of the country goes. Ki nahi, this won't be that efficient, but it's wonderful. It's a breath of fresh air to hear that they're adopting and they're doing such a wonderful job, which augurs wonderfully well for the future ahead. Which brings me to this. 6,000 deliveries per day in one city, 200,000 monthly packages, 200 plus approved air corridors, 30 plus patents. You've really been a busy bee. At what scale does safety, redundancy and air traffic management become harder than the drone technology itself, according to you, sir?
I think it will take like millions of deliveries in a day. Today, the systems are developed and designed in a way that it can handle about 100,000 flights in a month, which triggers down to somewhere close to about 2.5 million shipments a month, and which can easily be catered to, right? I think when we go to about, let's say, a million deliveries, which is going to be like coming from about 25 odd cities, a million a day, the sky is going to be like super congested. Cities like NCR are going to see about the emergence of thousands of drones which are flying in the airspace. And the airspace itself becomes a very complex subject, right? It's not an easy subject. What we fly in technical terms is called as LANs, low altitude airspace, essentially, which is below 400 feet. And the low altitude airspace is more complex than the high altitude airspace, in the sense that you will have too many flying objects in this particular airspace. You have unidentified objects, variables like the bird flying in the corridor, the kites flying in the corridor, multiple other things flying in the corridors, which creates the variable safety, or which takes the safety standard for having an equipment flying in the airspace to be on a much right. Today we use LiDAR and radar both on our drones. We don't use computer vision. We're utilizing LiDAR and radar both in terms of navigating through any variable obstacles which are moving in the airspace and identify those and be able to take up necessary actions. The compute module, and as we progress, I think it's going to be more about how fast the compute module and the drone is able to capture the data points and be able to start working out. Now, I'll give you one of the short examples. Like this is one of the things that we're trying to work around right now and find out a fix to it. Let's assume that we have one Skye pod in one apartment building or housing complex, and like working with 10 different platforms. And there are like 10 different drones which are coming from, one is coming from a meat delivery platform, one is coming from a vegetable delivery platform, the third is coming from a food delivery platform, and the fourth is coming from a e-commerce, and the fifth is coming from a quick commerce. Which one will go first and drop the package over there, right? I think building a prioritization index, right? Building a prioritization index where safety is paramount, in the sense that we look into that which are the parameters which needs to be calculated, and the drones need to have a vehicle-to-vehicle communication in Skye, being able to communicate with each other in terms of synchronizing, rather than the human sitting in the office and defining that drone 1 has to go first or drone 2 has to go first.
Yeah.
We do the whole compute on the drone itself, where the drone is able to decide in real time on what each of the 5 drones, which one is going to go first and drop and head back to the base, versus the second one and the third one. I think it's a complex mathematical problem, which we are solving, and we're trying to build things more around it to fasten the entire compute module and to work in a sync that it is able to crunch that amount of data and able to provide the necessary actions within seconds, not minutes. Because the more it is hovering at the pod, it is losing the battery power. So you have to take care of each and every elements, each and every aspects of things which are required to be taken care over there.
For my knowledge, run me through this. As far as the drone delivery system methodology is concerned, I'd like to talk to you about safety. I'd like to talk to you about the battery life aspect. And the third is the human in the loop, because I think they're all interlinked. Maybe not the battery of the drone, but the battery of the human. But the point that I want to ask you is this. Now, when you talk about safety corridors, these are earmarked prior to the overall understanding. Henceforth, the overall government approvals are necessary, without which you can't move, because, well, there are other national security aspects, etc., which come into the picture. That is one. I'd like you to elaborate on that. Second is the aspect of how important, from both the safety aspect and also from the point of view of, as you were saying, mapping the deliveries, doing X amount of things. Do you see, Ankit, I know you're trying to solve a problem, but do you see ever the human in the loop kind of moving out of the picture, or no? I mean, agentic AI and all that.
Yeah. So, okay, let me take up the first one first, right? The regulation is moving. I mean, the regulation for the drones and the space element is always on the slower front than the technology.
Which is generally the case across the world. But
yeah, it's generally the case across the world. But yeah, so good part over here is that the regulators are working in tandem with how the industry wants to progress and what kind of elements are required for the industry to progress. Although they are slow, but they are on the right path in terms of establishing a certain guidelines on how to operate, where to operate, what not to do, etc., so as to avoid any scenario where the safety incidents are happening and people are going out of the way and doing something which is going to spoil the whole industry at large. So I think the regulators are very deeply focused on that, and they really are looking at working with players who can prove the ability, but at the same time they're looking at very selectively approving corridors and places where you can go and fly drones and different elements of things. And there will be a lot of guidelines, which is work in progress, which will come out in the near future. And that's how typically the government is working on right now. So there is a regulatory angle. The regulatory clearances are not that easy. You have to convince the authorities. You have to go and work with them hand in hand in terms of ensuring that what you're doing is much more safer. How you are mitigating the safety net, how you're looking into.
It should be, no, Ankit? I hope you agree with me. The onus of responsibility then becomes yours. It is on your shoulder, and you need to think probably 10 steps ahead of the nefarious characters who can, I don't know, hackers, etc., various people like that. You need to think 10 steps ahead so that the government starts to feel happier and easier when you're presenting them with a solution. Am I right? Am I wrong?
I think 100 steps, right?
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah, because in our mind, when we were also developing this and when we went to the market and we started doing drone deliveries, we literally went through hundreds and thousands of permutations and combinations of what can go wrong, right? And then go back to the sketchboard and still figure out what other elements we need to establish in terms of mitigating the risk. Because here's two things that we are mitigating. One is the ground risk, and the second is the air risk. Right? The ground and the air risk requires, or a system can have four kind of failures: man, method, material, and machine. Right?
Sure.
So either the machine is at fault or the method is wrong that you're following it.
The 4M method, correct?
Yeah, the four M's typically, right? Now these 4M's we took into the consideration. We developed a whole architecture of what can go wrong with these 4M's, and they're like 100 scenarios that we built. We worked on those 100 scenarios and we figured out what are the level 1 redundancies that we need to keep on the fail safes that we need to keep on the drone, level 2 fail safes and level 3 fail safes. In certain subsystems, we have 3 levels of fail safes. In certain subsystems, we have 2 levels of fail safes. I think majority, we have 2 levels of fail safes, which are kept into consideration. So, and then we have parachute as the final level of fail safe, which is there on the drones, etc., etc. These are built in a way to ensure that we take the whole ownership of anything going wrong with the drone and anything going wrong with the whole process which is happening over there. So we need to be like 100 times more careful before we take out anything and before we do any kind of operations in ground in cities which are highly densely populated and where the government is taking up huge amount of risk, giving us approvals to go and fly and do different amount of activities and then carry out and share things with them at the back of the day. Ensure that the policies which they are going to build up is more centric around the safer environment creation where the businesses can thrive and work, but the safety is paramount and safety is the first thing that they look into. Safety and reliability, I think these are the two key pillars that everybody is looking into it. That's the first part of it. The second part of it, which you are asking about, the whole human loop. I see that by 2030, 20% of our operations, 20% of the flights that we'll be conducting will be 100% without the man in the loop.
Wow.
Right? 20% of that, right? The 80% will still be the runners in the loop. The reason, as I said, the infra is not ready to that extent to be able to mitigate the runners from the picture. Because today, the e-commerce companies or the quick commerce companies, they have different mechanisms of delivery. You see, we have a prepaid model, we have a COD model, we have an open box delivery model, and then we have different other kind of mechanisms for proof of delivery collection, by pictures, by OTP, by several other means, etc., which are there. We have a RTO mechanism, cancellation mechanisms, and plenty of other things which are there in the entire loop. The robot simply doing this in areas where the robot cannot access the consumers is very hard, right? The robots are going to happen in workplaces like Cyber Hub can be the first one, essentially. I'm not hinting towards anything, but I think in a couple of months, you'll see something coming out of Cyber Hub for sure.
Nice, interesting. Cyber Hub in Gurgaon is what you're talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, there's only one Cyber Hub.
That's true.
Right. So how we see this is that today, these workplaces, they don't allow the delivery agents to go inside the building. They are all outside the building.
True.
Waiting at a particular location.
Correct.
And we see that there's a vacuum, there's a gap of convenience, which can be filled in by the robots. So the robots will first go into the workplace environments, large IT complexes, office buildings, etc., where the robots do not pose any kind of threat to anybody. So they can navigate and go through. And then most of these IT complexes are enabled with wheelchair access and multiple things where the robots can slide through and go and access the elevator and go to the floor number 5 and come to your reception desk, and you can walk to the reception desk and take those packages, right? So I think first of kinds will always begin from the office complexes, and then eventually we can go to luxury condos and places where all these access points and new age residential apartments and housing complexes are coming in, which are enabled for taking up or integrating the robots into the current ecosystem which are currently there, right? Like, I mean, I think Tesla has been talking about the Optimus. The Optimus are going to work in environments where Optimus can connect to the larger data centers and be able to access things in real time. Imagine Optimus in a place where there's zero internet and be able to function, right? So I think until Starlink doesn't go to that extent where everybody has an access to internet and access to high-speed internet, I think the robot inclusion will become more difficult in those areas. And
Starlink right now, in any case, Ankit, as you're aware, I mean, the government of India has not been very, very forthcoming as far as the policy and allowing them to go ahead and start off operations in India is concerned. That's still iffy. There was something that happened about a couple of months back. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah. I know. I think the Reliance is going to break into this, right?
Yeah, I agree. Fair enough.
Right. But let's see. But I think the future is like great in the sense that there's too much of opportunities which are existing. It's right in front of us, and the way physical AI is now evolving.
Physical AI is going to take a very, very strong role, according to you, maybe in the next, let's say, a couple of years.
Absolutely. Because there's huge amount of potential. I think we are done with the AI in the chat GPT forms,
Correct.
or AI in the imaging context forms, etc. I think most of the people are now moving towards the coding front. They see cloud
Yeah,
codes,
most of them.
right?
I'm sure
Most of
you
them.
also use a lot of that as far as your coding goes.
Yeah, I think as an organization, we have got this whole thing in picture that every single department have to use different amount of agents. Like our marketing team is just a single person team, right?
Oh wow, wonderful.
It's like we have like 3 or 4 agents which are running in the back end,
Nice.
figuring out what and where to go and what to do, etc., and then managing those expectations out loud and creating those pictures for us. And then I think there's good amount of tools that the other teams are now utilizing to create
Very nice.
different layers of optimization to ensure that the efficiency is becoming much greater. But I think the biggest benefit which is coming to all the teams right now is not about the efficiency creation. Efficiency is certainly coming out of the AI, but it's more about freeing up their bandwidth to do something more. And utilizing their time to create and do strategic thinking, which they were not getting time to think about it.
And that's happening, Ankit? I mean, it's just not generally a PR pitch, etc. Because a lot of companies tend to do that, right? You know, we free up people, etc. But doesn't really kind of translate to ground. But I'm pretty sure that what you're talking about translates as far as your company is concerned, and probably a lot of other companies which you're close to. Have you seen that change started to take place?
Absolutely. I think I won't say that we are 100% there. I would say that the teams have started to evolve and started to utilize these things.
It's nice.
They'll still take about 6 months to about a year in terms of developing and creating things in a way that the systems are defined. So what we're developing is a people independent systems, right? PIS is what we call it internally. The people independent systems. So it's not dependent on any person. It can be any person who can come tomorrow and start working out and developing and creating things out here. And people independent systems are certainly going a very long way in terms of defining the processes and defining the systems. And everything is then system driven rather than people dependent and people driven.
Fair enough. So that means there is always going to be the human intelligence driving the model. That's for sure. There is going to be a human sense of an understanding driving it, orchestrating it maybe to an extent. But at the end of it all, you do believe in the fact that moving forward, there will be a nice little balance which hopefully will be struck. People are freaked out right now. And what do you have to say about FTEs?
I don't know why people are freaked out, because in my opinion, it gives us a lot of leverage in terms of freeing up the bandwidth that we were deploying in very redundant works and very work which was taking a lot of bandwidth in terms of following up with each other and doing those elements of things, which can be simply outsourced to agents that we can build internally. And once we have built those agents, and once those agents are trained to a certain level, and they are able to, and we can do a comparison between the human element and the agent element. And once the agent element has become much better, 99% to the human element piece of it, that's where you start switching onto those particular elements. I think once those elements are going to happen, things are going to change very, very drastically for us. I think for every other organization in the world as well, because they all are adopting and they all are trying to create things in all different lines, right? I think healthcare is one such industry which is benefiting this from a very, very high level.
Oh, yes.
So, and even engineering for that matter, the iterations that you used to do, which used to take 6 months, those iterations to create a product or to create or to run through the algorithms is now going to take about a few days, because all the permutation and combinations are being run by the AI in the back end, and it's running 24/7. So you don't need to wake up and do what you're coding, and you don't have to sleep or not sleep the entire night and keep on coding and keep on doing things. I think it's happening on multiple systems. You just need multiple systems and multiple agents which can work on systems like that. But yeah, that's certainly going to consume the data. That's certainly going to consume the energy
That's another conversation altogether.
Yeah, I know. We'll not digress to those conversations, but yeah, I think that's where we're leading. Yeah.
Fair enough. But Ankit, as far as you just mentioned that, a lot of companies are doing dramatically well, what tends to happen when a company starts to do dramatically well is the funding. Which brings me to this point. Zipline has raised $200 million in March of 2026. Then we have Amazon Prime Air scaling in the United States. Wing, Mana aggressively pursuing Western markets. Now, what specifically is building in India, for example, the 14% logistics cost as GDP, what do you have to say on that as far as that entire method goes? I mean, fragmented addressing, density, regulatory learning. So, will that give Skye Air that Zipline and Amazon cannot replicate?
Right. So look at two things here, right? We are completely in a very different market, right? India behaves very differently than how US does.
Sure.
That's one of the reasons why Amazon is doing 100% of their deliveries in the US by themselves, while in India, 80-90% of their deliveries are outsourced to 3PL companies, right? It's a different beast here altogether.
Yeah, it's true.
In context of the cost, in context of the cheap labor available, in context of each and every element and how they typically function out here, right? So the sheer comparisons into the mechanisms can be very different.
Okay.
How we see is that the efficient utilization of the capital is there for us right now in India, and that's how we have been utilizing. And having raised about $11 million so far, we have been able to efficiently utilize that capital to achieve a certain scale. Where Zipline is the one, like the OGs of the entire industry. They created the whole thing in the first place. They envisioned a lot of things, which works for the US market, right? Which works for deliveries which are happening from one-to-one perspective. And you have to go and you have to do those amount of burn over there because there's separate regulation, there's separate laws of the land which works over there.
DGCA, very quickly, I want to add to this so that maybe you'll be able to share a lot better and insight with all of our audience. Let's say DGCA has been far more progressive, right? Now, if I were to talk about it with, let's say, if you were to probably compare it with a BVLOS or for that matter, any of those, how would you kind of, factor in those aspects as well? Because that probably will give a lot more clarity to us.
I think DGCA is very optimistic and very forward-looking when it comes to application of drones and how drones have been able to utilize over here. And they are also progressing very well with the eVTOLs to enable air taxi and other operations in the future. When it comes to BVLOS regulation, there is no such regulation which is standing in the country right now. Neither it is in the US, right? So US too doesn't have the BVLOS regulation. They're still working on what is called over there as Part 108. That's the regulatory framework which is being created. The similar framework is being created in India as well. All the approvals today, all the waivers today, etc., has to go through the ministry and the DGCA, and only when you get that you are able to fly. And the similar thing happens over there as well. That all these guys like Amazon, Zipline, Mana, everybody has got waivers and approvals from FAA to start doing activities in certain corridors, certain areas which have been given to them in terms of carrying out those things. And they keep back and forth sharing data with each other, sharing reports with each other to build that confidence layer which is required with the regulators out here, right? So I would say that from FAA and DGCA perspective, both are similar levels with the kind of adoption kind of things which are currently ongoing and with the kind of framework that they're all looking at building across. US definitely will take a lead in the next couple of years in terms of widespread allocation of resources. Which
because of also the infrastructure, probably. I'm leaning that side.
See, I think US fundamentally is very different from India. India, it is like even if DGCA comes out tomorrow and says that BVLOS is allowed and permitted, the industry adoption is a key consideration, and industry adoption is not driven by the fact that regulation exists. Industry adoption is driven by so industry adoption is driven by the fact that how beneficial it is for the country, right? So that's how it is driven in India, because they always compare you to the ground logistics. They see that is there a cost effectiveness, is there a speed element, is there a kind of a thing which exists over here. So here we are like value conscious people, right?
Sure.
We want value out of every penny that we invest in, right?
Sir, Ford as a company started way back in 1995. You remember what happened? Because they could not deal with the cost competitiveness as far as the automotive sector was concerned, they had to shut down.
Absolutely. There are a lot of examples. I mean, I worked very closely with Harley Davidson, right?
Right.
Look at Harleys, right? Harleys were here. They were at a price premium. They even brought the X440s. They still had to wind up shops and collaborate with Hero MotoCorp of running their current retails and everything out here. But yeah, coming back to that, for the US, it's a very different thing. For the US, it is more like the day FAA unlocks Part 108 and says that now you can go and do drone deliveries and things like that. The industry will adopt it like anything.
Fair enough.
Right? They start utilizing it across the specters, across the sectors, and they start utilizing in a much, much higher volume altogether. And FAA is deciding the unlocking of the industry over there. Here, it is slightly the other way. Regulatory unlock is important, but at the same time, the industry unlock is also required to be done.
Fair point. Fair. That draws a very interesting distinction, and I think gives a lot of clarity to it. Now, on front page, I remember we had done an entire understanding on airbound, 10,000 drone flights daily in Andhra Pradesh, connecting Amravati, Vijayawada and Guntur over 89-kilometer corridors. Now, Skye Air operates in dense urban environments with 7-minute delivery windows. Now, two very different drone delivery architectures, Ankit. There was a reason I wanted to kind of ask you this. Where do they converge, and is the future one network or many specialized ones?
Are they doing 10,000 flights?
Yeah, I believe so.
I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I just threw out a figure at you.
I mean, look, it's super complex. Just from the sheer perspective that even if you're operating in a couple of routes, or like for example, we have about 150 routes for India Post alone in Himachal and Assam. We are activating it slowly and gradually in those territories. The airspace complexity is very high, right? When you fly so many drones which are flying in those corridors, right? At peak, we have done about 250 flights in a day, right? That's a peak.
I thought that 10,000 number is a total. That's what I meant.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
Total.
Yeah, could be that way. Not per day. Per day is max.
No.
That's too high.
Total.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean that's what we have done. I think there's no convergence which is happening today. I think it's going to be very distributed mechanisms for very distributed kind of payloads which are going to happen out here. What we very initially realized is that going with a 1 kg payload or 1.5 kg payload capacity drones are simply not going to work out in India because again,
there was a 9 kg mattress that you delivered, man.
Yes.
It was quite amazing.
So see, I told you, India is a different beast altogether, right? If you go into solving 1:1, which what Zipline is doing in the US, we will never end up making money because 1:1, there is no aggregation benefit. So what we meant is with 10 kg payload capacity, which could cater about 20-25 odd shipments. And when we cater to about 25 odd shipments, we are aggregating 25 shipments in one flight, which makes our unit economics much better. And that allows me to play at a 50% gross margin kind of a level, right? So that's how the unit economics will essentially work around, because the last leg, drones are cheaper. Like I can do the delivery in 3 rupees.
You've established that. True.
It's just that the last leg of the delivery, the consumers will not come to the pods and pick up their own packages. They want somebody to come to the doorstep, if they go to the bed, and give the packages to them, right? We are I think quick commerce has exploited us in a way that
spoiled us as well.
Yeah, sort of. I'm sorry, I was saying the spoiled. It has spoiled us in many ways that we become very used to getting the shipments delivered to the doorsteps.
But before we conclude, Ankit, I have to share this with you, and I have a question in conclusion. But I thought this is wonderful news that we had Mr. Chakravarti of ePlane exclusively on Front Page, and we were having a very in-depth conversation. And a lot of things that he talked about were so heartening to hear. Things like that he's hitting the air ambulance sector very hard. He's trying to bring it down for all the passengers so that, a way larger audience can be catered to. 1.5 lakhs odd is probably the price these days for an air ambulance. Not everyone can afford it. He wants to make it affordable for various companies. He's even speaking, I believe, with some insurance companies which can add a certain amount of premium of 500 or maybe 1,000. So I thought it was a great initiative, and I just thought it's great news. I'll share it with you because it's in the same space as you.
No, absolutely. I think the ePlane company is doing something very, very great. They have been innovating this. They have been doing this for a while in terms of creating solutions for applications which are going to define and really transform the entire healthcare initiatives in the country. Connecting the rural and the semi-urban areas to the urban areas, and the sort of things which are required in context of connecting and establishing those regional layers for people to get to the medical attention much quicker.
True.
Even tomorrow, I think the organ deliveries and movements of organs between these corridors are going to be super critical, and it's going to impact millions of Indians living in different rural and semi-urban areas to get connected to right healthcare facilities. I was when we started this back in 2021, we were doing this project called as Medicine from the Sky in Vikarabad, Telangana. Nice. That's where we started flying drones from. It was 11th of September 2021 is when we flew the first time. And I think the sheer thing which everybody was looking at solving for is the rural healthcare accessibility.
Correct.
In Vikarabad, that given point of time, the data that we had showed that there's a lot of thalassemia patients over there who requires frequent healthcare access and movements of and attention which was required for them in that particular territory. Now, while Vikarabad and Hyderabad is still connected with 1.5 hours sort of a drive, think about the more rural areas which are there. Think about areas which are there. I think air ambulance and likes of applications like that is really going to create huge amount of impact in those areas. So from an impact creation perspective and inclusion into the current healthcare system is super important. The private sector needs to now look into moving outside of cities and creating more of mobile stations and mobile hospitals in different rural areas, which could help which could be connected through drones and air ambulances and multiple other things eventually to cater in that requirement.
You plan to expand in terms of that area?
I mean, we don't know.
You've already had a taste of it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know today, but we have done a lot of work with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, with AIIMS, with certain amount of deliveries that we have conducted for AIIMS and RIMS and Regional Institute of Medical Sciences in Manipur and other locations that we have carried out. So we do see that there's this huge amount of possibilities which exist there. But yeah, I think the key thing that needs to be still solved over there, which UDAN scheme has really done it very well on the connectivity front, which needs to also be taken care by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, is more towards providing a VGF, viability gap funding, right? Because when you commit on to utilizing drones, the sheer utilization of the drone has to go well, right?
Oh, yes.
The problem is that in the rural areas context, the number of drone flights that you conduct is very minimal because of the density issues. Right. And since you're not able to utilize the drones properly, for a private sector to establish and create larger outcomes doesn't happen. From an impact creation perspective, sure, it works out very well. But from a long-term business standpoint, it doesn't work out because you don't get that kind of a volume which is required to be taken in that particular area. So I think the right way is to create something which UDAN has done, which RCA schemes have done, on providing minimum guarantees. Even if there is one passenger who's flying from X location to Y location, they get paid for the entire thing, right? So I think those elements of things can really trigger the rural healthcare accessibility to take place and happen in a much larger manner.
Thank you so much, Ankit, for highlighting that. That's actually wonderfully knowledgeable. And the fact that I wish that through this platform, whatever you've spoken about really does accelerate schemes a lot like Udan moving forward. Finally, you're building toward full autonomy. India has millions of gig economy delivery workers. How do you hold that in a very honest manner? And what does Skye Air's responsibility look like in that transition? I had to ask you a very difficult question before I let you go.
I think we will converge into what a physical AI space looks like.
Okay.
Right. But that convergence is like almost 13 to 14 years ahead.
Okay.
We're talking about like 2040 sort of a timeline when the entire ecosystem on the mobility front will start converging towards becoming, or starts moving towards becoming more singular, with defined levels of focus and with defined level of operators who will be operating at that particular level. And there is for now, there's a coexistence of every technology which will be there, right? You have the drones, we will have robots operating, we will have humans operating, we will have three-wheeler autonomous vehicles on road operating. We'll have different layers of things which will operate. I think that's fascinating to see how things can evolve. I was in SF like last week, and I see like there are 4 operators from Waymo to Zoox to Tesla cyber cab, to the Uber guys who have been operating with Lucid. There are 4 different operators operating autonomous vehicles without the driver in the loop, right? In the SF area. Now, that's the flexibility that you have over there to keep on trying out new things and do things. I think India will see the similar emergence of technology with defined level of scope for people to fail, for people to try out new things.
That's nice to hear.
Experiment new things. And I think we need to build that ecosystem where we can celebrate failures. We can try to fail ourselves. We can try to create something new, because without failure, you can't create something new. Trust me, there's huge amount of pressure of entrepreneurs. I keep on interacting with a lot of fellow founders and entrepreneurs who have this sheer pressure that we can't fail. And what will society think about it? We will be banned, and next time I go for funding, nobody's going to fund me, etc. And all those kind of nuances which exist. So I think we need to get past those fear. We need to get past those pressure which surmounts on us. And we need to build an ecosystem which can celebrate failures than success. Success is celebrated everywhere. We need to start embracing and talking about developing something which the country has never seen before.
Ankit, you've been a champ as far as the overall conversation goes. You've been a champ as far as your initiative goes, and you've done wonderfully well. And the fact that you embrace and honestly uphold the idea of failure. Till now, you haven't. Well, you probably had many failures, but the overall enterprise has been a wonderful lift-off that you've had. All we can do is wish you all of the best and your entire team, all of the positive energy moving forward. Skye Air seems to be doing a lot of things right, but also I think what you're doing right is spreading the word in the ecosystem and encouraging a lot of people to come around and maybe take a note out of your own playbook, probably get people to speak with you, because I think a lot of the conversations that you and I have had, it's been a very positive understanding, and I would credit you with that, sir.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for having me on the show. I look forward to interacting more with you in the future.
Truly look forward to it. And the fact that will it be... Sorry, you were saying?
I was saying we look forward to build together a technology-enabled Bharat.
Wonderfully put, sir. Wonderfully put. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Ankit, the founder and CEO of Skye Air, a person who has put it across wonderfully well where he's building for the country. I couldn't have put it any better. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below this, ladies and gentlemen, front page by the AM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think IM.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adasi, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ML file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Py project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So this is the app where you have a Py cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker, and these things come automatically. You can click on data store. You can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. I'm Antara and you're watching Point Break. In fact, today is a very, very special episode of Point Break, and I'll tell you why in just a short while from now. Just yesterday, we asked whether India could become the world's training ground for physical AI. Today, I want to show you what that actually looks like, because sitting in the studio with me right now are two founders from HSR Layout, right here in Namma, Bengaluru, who are literally building the hardware that robots used to learn how humans see and really move around through the world. And they've brought it in. So before we really talk about the future of physical artificial intelligence, let's take a look at it. I'm Antara, this is Point Break. We are getting right into it. With me, Sriraj, Rishabh, welcome guys. It's a true pleasure to have you here. These guys are the co-founders of Panoculon Labs, which is an IIT Madras-born startup that started by building assistive technology for the visually impaired and for people who can't really see. And they have now started shipping egocentric data capture hardware to the labs in, I believe, in the US and China. So their product is TriNet, if I'm not wrong, TriNet, which is right here in front of us. And quite honestly, I'm like a child in a candy store right now, because before we get into the nitty-gritties and the hard questions of what you guys do, I really want you to tell me what this is. Like, walk me through it. I believe it's one of this is a head-mounted device,
Right.
which weighs up to 30. May I just take a look at it?
Please.
All right. This is really fun. This is feather light. This is feather light. And you were telling me, like, right before our conversation started, that this is one of the lightest
Yes, the
versions.
lightest
Okay.
versions.
All right. Can you guys like walk me around what this really is? What does
Sure.
it do? How does it work?
Right.
Just, yeah.
Right. So this is our mono version, which we call mono because it just has one camera.
Okay.
Inside that, there is a 9 degree of freedom IMU. Essentially, an IMU is a motion sensor which
Okay.
tells your head acceleration, angular velocity, how
Okay.
fast it's rotating,
Okay.
as well as the magnetic fields around it.
Okay.
So this helps kind of for researchers to train where your head was in 3D space.
Okay.
And we also have 2 microphones for it to get some audio cues. For example,
right.
when you plug in USB in your laptop, you get a sound.
Hmm.
So we want to train robots that, okay, when you get a sound, which means the USB is plugged in correctly.
Okay.
So how it works is you just wear it on your head, like
All right.
how I'm wearing. It's feather light, very
Okay.
easy to wear.
Okay.
And to record a video, there are 2 modes. You can either connect it to your smartphone
Okay.
and record the video,
Okay.
or you could have an onboard SD card mode and record it.
All
So
right.
different clients have different requirements
Hmm.
depending on data privacy issues with SD cards versus the application.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. The problem with the mono camera, the head camera, is that what we're trying to actually, robotics labs are trying to capture is how your fingers are moving around for delicate tasks.
Hmm.
And when my fingers move below my palms, the head camera cannot really see
Okay.
where the fingers are.
Okay.
And that's where we kind of come with the wrist cameras, which
All right.
Sriraj
So
has.
this is a head mount.
This is a
and
head
that's
mount,
a wrist
and that's a wrist
camera.
mount.
All
So
right.
that
This
will,
is light too.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So lightweight is a very important aspect while building these devices, because the current solutions like GoPro or an iPhone weigh about 200 grams, almost like 4 times heavier than these.
Right.
And when you're wearing something heavy for 8 hours a day, you are wearing something and you're conscious of it. So even the data, the everyday task which you're doing could be
Yeah.
hampered by it. And there's also like a research that if you're wearing anything more than 50 grams, your head will get headaches. And you can also imagine that it translates more when you're wearing it on your wrist, because you want to keep this movement as lightweight as possible. So you can kind of, just like a watch, wear this, and
Okay.
after a while you won't even feel that you're wearing
All right.
this device.
All right.
So the camera is kind of below your palm that can track the fingers really well.
Okay.
So that's how it works.
All right. And how does the data get recorded real time, and you're putting it onto a computer server? Like how does it really
so
work?
that is another thing. So right now we don't really require an external compute to kind of synchronize all of these cameras
Okay.
and store them.
Okay.
Each of them have an SD card, and we have detachable radio beacons, sync beacons, which we call them. And you just switch on one camera, all of them turn on at the same time, and they're all synchronized, like up to less than a millisecond synchronized.
Okay.
So which you can't get while manually doing it in software. So, and which is also really important for the labs.
Okay.
So that is how.
So yeah, what I wanted to know from you is, Sriraj, how did you come about this particular gadget? Like, how did you guys really start? You were talking about how you started with glasses. So how did you really go
Right.
from
So as you mentioned, we were building assistive technology before, smart glasses for
Yes.
persons with visually impaired people.
Yes.
So we were a bit familiar with the image sensor and motion sensor, the whole integration side of things. And that's why we have been working in this field for a couple of years now. And recently this year was when the physical AI and data for physical AI space actually took off. And a couple of startups in this space actually approached us because we had this hardware knowledge that, whether we can actually build such a custom hardware. Because like Rishabh mentioned, there are the existing generic hardware like GoPro and iPhones, they have certain limitations.
Yes.
And that's how we came to build our own hardware, and that was really widely positively received by many of our customers. In fact, the surprising fact that some of our customers are like the best players in this hardware space, but still they choose to buy from us, like a very small startup compared to them, because our calibration, our
Absolutely. I
synchronization.
mean, this is, if I could go as far and call it revolutionary, because like you mentioned, there are devices in the market, yes, but they come with their own set of limitations. So no wonder this has fared so well with your clients abroad as well. Which brings me to my next question, and Rishabh, I want to ask this to you. When you first started pitching this, would you say that there was apprehension in your audience? How did the people really react to it on ground?
For the TriNet device.
Yes.
So the thing is, the good thing which happened with this hardware is that we didn't really pitch it to anyone. The demand came from the market itself.
Okay.
So we were previously building our smart glasses, which we still are, but it's a much more complex project than this. So it's taking some time. But then, as Sheila said, once there was a paper by NVIDIA in February, and that kind of scaled this market a lot. And then people came with the demand for these devices. So we didn't really have to pitch to anyone to buy these devices, but the demand kind of came organically.
And from what I've read, your exports have crossed domestic sales. I mean, that by itself is a very significant moment. And just for your information, ladies and gentlemen, we were just having a talk about this where, he was telling me how this has just been few months, 3 months?
3 months.
3 months, and you have crossed domestic sales. How did that fare out?
Right. So, as Sheila was saying, there are these frontier labs in the US which kind of want the best quality data for their training. Because if you use generic hardware like iPhone or GoPro, different versions of GoPro, different versions of iPhone will have some differences in the camera quality, in the image quality. Whereas we have to we in fact have like long list of tests which our camera needs to pass before it kind of is ready to ship to these customers. So they really value, the kind of quality of camera which we're able to provide, the synchronization quality which we're able to provide, as well as, it functioning in different lighting conditions. So that's how this kind of took about, and then we
But
started
it must be so fascinating, no? Because how does it really feel like to assemble the infrastructure here, in Bengaluru's HSR layout, and then be able to ship that all across to the labs, to the robotic labs in the US and China? How does that feel?
That's a really great feeling for us because traditionally folks have seen India as like a back office or where operational work goes. But here we are doing something with a real IP in it.
Absolutely.
And we are resonating across the world. So people value India also as a market where you can get such cutting edge technology.
Absolutely. Rishabh and Sriraj, since we are talking about HSR layout, there are also talks how HSR layout can become India's AI capital, right? Because there's something really, really interesting happening in that particular area as we speak, right? There are, within every few kilometers, you have founders building generative AI, you have founders building robotics, autonomous systems, and all of them are just within walking distance within one another. What is it that is so, again, for the lack of a better term, fertile about the HSR layout ground that is attracting founders from all over, and they are like setting their hubs there? What is happening?
So I think that's more of a compounding effect because we ourselves moved to HSR because many of our customers, in fact, it was quite surprising. Across India, if we look at all the physical AI startups or startups involved in data collection, many of them are super concentrated in specifically HSR layout. So previously we were located in another side of Bangalore. We had to keep commuting between back and forth from HSR. So that's why we decided, and I believe that's a reason for many startups to set up their office here as well. Because there's a super high concentration, and that leads compounding again and again, that more of their customers and vendors, etc. come in.
So would you say that because you were surrounded by so many other AI founders, right? Would you say that sort of changed or sort of put an impression how Panaculan became, how it turned out to be? Was there any sort of aid, I would say, from the AI founders that are around you? Is there a community that you have built of sorts that finally gave shape to Panaculan, the shape it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, the founder community is quite strong. I mean, it's not geographically limited because most things, communities are online right now. But the founders are quite supportive with each other, irrespective of the market. So they might be in completely different market, but we might have faced the same challenges, same sort of regulations, all that stuff. So founders are quite helping with each other, and that has also helped us quite a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering that, Sriraj. I also want to talk about how the AI race in today's time, it has moved from the internet to the physical world, which is essentially the topic at hand right now. So for a decade, artificial intelligence really learned from what humans are doing in terms of how they are moving, the text, the videos, the images. The internet essentially was a training set of sorts, right? Now it's transcended that. It has crossed that boundary. It has moved into the physical world of it, right? Rishabh, would you say that we have actually hit the ceiling on what internet scale data can teach artificial intelligence?
Yes,
would you say we are there?
Yes, absolutely. So, like how this actually started is, so there's this paradox by Hans Marvelov. Essentially, for us humans, solving a complex puzzle like playing chess, etc., is very difficult. But for a machine, it's algorithmically very simple. Whereas for us, playing sports or just picking up this cup of water is very simple. But if you try to teach that to a machine, it's much more complex. So it's kind of like a paradox.
Okay.
And therefore, they kind of came up with this spatio-temporal intelligence part of it.
Okay.
So it's not only what you've learned or how to play chess, but also how do you interact with your surroundings.
Okay.
And right now, the internet data mostly is a huge corpus of textual data with, of course, some amount of video and audio.
Yes.
But then the robots, it's like, I tell someone on call without a video call on how do you, fix a machine. But only when I tell them, you have to rotate this particular knob this way, you have to do these motions, is when that person will know. So therefore, you require a huge amount of spatial data for the robotics manipulators to learn how to move about that.
Understood. Very interesting, Rishabh. Sriraj, in terms of, I'll dive a bit into the technological aspect of it. What becomes possible, when a robot has learned from the human eye point of view, rather than, a fixed camera looking at them? How is this revolutionary? How is this changing that game?
So when we are training robots using like physical data, physical data or egocentric data, as we are discussing right now, how is different from conventional mathematical rules is that, so typically earlier robots used to have very limited degrees of freedom. So those could
in terms of movement?
Yes.
Okay.
So in terms of movement, in terms of the manipulation, etc. So they would manipulate or do simple tasks. So now when robots have like n number of, so as degrees of freedom increases, it also exponentially increases. So when at that scale, it becomes mathematically and computationally very difficult to control it using simple mathematical rules. And that's where such AI models kind of enters the game. And that's where, so right now, a lot of these prominent robotics companies are building humanoids, which also need to have very powerful, very high degrees of freedom, just like a human, right? So that is where egocentric data becomes more significant, because they are able to train models to control these robots.
All right. That makes sense. Yesterday, again, like the conversation we were having yesterday, the guests who came on Point Break episode, they made quite a few cases on India's diversity of environments, right? When it comes to really hosting physical AI labs, in terms of factories, in terms of markets, in terms of hospitals, farms, construction sites, there's just so much variation on the ground, right? Now, I believe Panaculan is essentially the hardware layer of that argument, yes? So, Rishabh, what makes India's operating environment, the current operating environment, specifically valuable for training these robots?
So, one, of course, is that, in robotics, we say that the better quality of data you have and the more diversified data you have, the better a robot will be able to generalize on that data. And currently, whatever data is being collected in India as well as South Asia, that is majorly used to pre-train the models, not actually kind of deploy them in the industry. So what I mean by pre-train is that India has, of course, we all know that it's very diversified. You have all sorts of industries. You have textiles, you have manufacturing, etc. Right? So the more amount of diversified data you have, the manipulators kind of learn that, what it generalizes much better. And then it goes to another mid-training stage wherein they have an actual robot and a human side by side, wherein I can kind of teach it one task. But in that case, it will be able to generalize that better. So all this research came about with the recent paper NVIDIA had released in February called Ego Scale, which kind of got very famous. So this is
how is it that, and this question that I just asked you, this was in context to what a robotics lab, say in a California or a Shanghai can generate on its own. So if you keep that comparison in your mind, how is it that India is, again, for taking a step ahead?
So there is also, when we were doing assistive technology, giving to the infrastructure of India and how it's not very structured, right? So if a robot can work in India, it can work in anywhere in the world. So that's the kind of ideology which people want.
And would you say that India's opportunity in, bigger in terms of building robots, or is it in training them?
No, so of course, first, before building robots, you have to train them. But right now, India is just collecting the data. But I think there's a bigger opportunity in actually owning that data and training your own models for it, which the US labs are doing. So I think that is one side which we should move forward, like training our own VLA models. And then, of course, building the hardware for the robots.
Absolutely. Now, building robots and training them, right? These are two very, I would say, different economic positions.
Right.
Where do you think the value actually sits, especially given the current scenario in India?
So right now, value in India, you're saying?
Yes,
Right.
specifically in India.
So one, of course, the hardware side of thing is kind of not there yet. Like we don't have very cheap robots which are highly dexterous that they can manipulate things very well. So the hardware side will take some time, but at the same time, the models are something which you need to spend time building. For example, OpenAI, Anthropic spent years kind of training their models, and right now in India we're catching up with Sarvam and other startups catching up to them. So right now is a good opportunity to kind of not miss this, robotics vision language action model in a race, like how we missed the LLM race.
Yes.
So right now that's a very good opportunity to be in and train,
but it's
have our
something
own
we need to
models.
bank on.
We need to bank on yes.
Immediately, right? Yesterday, like I was telling you all, we were talking about physical AI as well. And yesterday we asked some hard questions here. We talked about the labor market. Given the entry of physical AI into the scenario, we talked about labor market and, whether India is walking into the same trap it walked into when it came to call centers. Right? Now, this is providing the labor, somebody else is giving the labor while somebody else gets to keep the IP.
Right.
In terms of Paniculin, in terms of what it is doing, would you say that the same thing applies here, or are you guys doing it differently?
So for us, we are not into the data collection. We're just into building the best hardware out there. And whatever use case it can be used, which happens also to be user-centric data collection to a large scale.
Yeah.
So, but if you ask my opinion, so some people very high skilled professionals, they are averse that, they are collecting our data and in the future there'll be a robot who will do my job. So there they could kind of own that data and then kind of own the IP to the data. So rather than another company coming and just putting a head strap on my head, collecting the data and going away, they will pay me per hour. Instead of that, the data collected could be my IP and then I could sell that to a lot of people. So essentially, I'm selling my skills to people.
Okay. So Rishabh and Sriraj, you guys are essentially selling the hardware,
Yes.
right? You're selling the device itself. That's different, like you mentioned, that's different from selling data points or selling data devices for that matter. Does owning the hardware really change India's position in this particular value chain?
So it depends on capturing more and more higher levels of the value chain. So right now,
can you give me an example?
Okay, so right now the RGB, the single mono cameras, that was exclusively for egocentric data collection. You can use it only to record data, and that data is recorded. You build a model. That's again another step of the value chain. Then some company builds a humanoid robot using that. Then again another step of the value chain, etc. So those higher steps of the value chain end up being to a Western company who's doing it. But if you see our stereo camera, so beyond using it to collect data, it can also be used in the robots as a component of the robot. So if you see the analogy there, we have moved higher up the value chain to being a vendor for the robot itself. We can. So that kind of explains the position wherein we can move further up the value chain with further R&D and capture more of the value. So today we are building components for robots. Tomorrow we can build the robots themselves.
So, all right.
So our idea is also that, our devices are being used to collect the data and the robots are being trained on the data. So naturally they'll perform the best on our own cameras.
Okay.
So we sell it to collect data right now, but then tomorrow we sell it to humanoid companies for their data. For the
Interesting. There's another honest question from yesterday's episode that I want to bring into today's conversation. The person wearing the TriNet device, they basically are demonstrating tasks so that eventually a robot can learn them, can replicate them, can study them, analyze them, and eventually learn them.
Right.
Would you say, and this is again a hot topic, would you say that they are teaching a machine to take their job? your take on it?
There is a very interesting analogy I read somewhere, right? So it's like before ATMs used to be there, ATMs used to be so popular. People had to go to bank manually, and a human there had to manually process all these transactions, etc. But after ATMs came, instead of decreasing jobs in the banking segment, what it did was make banking more and more democratic or accessible to more and more people, and therefore increase the number of career opportunities in the banking sector. So that is something which we could probably expect in this segment.
Okay.
And another point of view here is that so a lot of many fields where this data is being recorded, for example, domestic help. So if you ask a domestic help in your home whether he or she wants their child to continue in their field of job, they would most likely say no. They would want their child to capture a higher value chain, as you are speaking. Right?
Certainly.
So that also kinds of the career change is also coming there, and that emptiness or that vacuum or that lack of labor, that will be taken up by robots. But of course, in India, the price arbitrage is there.
Yes.
It will be much more. We need much more cost-efficient robots to replace.
Absolutely. I mean, before they can create more jobs than they take, I think there is a certain gap to be bridged. Yes. I mean, I believe that concern is justified. I mean, you can agree or disagree with me on that. Or would you say physical AI creates new categories of work faster than it sort of removes existing ones? We can have a conversation on that too.
So I mean, instead of this doubt was also there when AI came about.
Yes.
That all software engineers will get replaced, etc. But we still see right now, software engineers are being hired. And even we, when we are training our model, we require software engineers to even operate the AI part of it. So I think rather than replacement, it'll kind of be like the robot walks along with you to kind of assist you better and do your task better. Of course, very menial jobs which do not really require much of human thought, that will be replaced altogether. But that's a good part, because I think the utopia would be that robots do all the menial jobs like my laundry, my dishwashing, and humans actually do creative work like art and inventing new things. Because that's what we were built to do, not like doing menial jobs.
That I believe that is certainly an optimistic approach to it. But again, there certainly is a gap that needs to be bridged, right? Okay, I want to quickly pivot back to our HSR layout conversation here. How we were talking about, would you say that HSR layout today, given the fact that there are so many companies sprouting in that area, would you say that it is becoming for AI what Silicon Valley became for internet? Would you say that statement stands true?
Yeah, of course. I mean, not only HSR, but the pack of HSR, Indiranagar and Koramangala, all three of
that
them,
area
kind of has that vibe. And yes.
Okay, all right, interesting. Sriraj, what I want to know from you, what I want to know from the two of you here, when you first pitched this idea of really building an egocentric data capture system and environment perception technology, how were the investors reacting to it? You told me how people reacted to it eventually, right? You told me that there was already a demand in place. What I want to know from you is, in terms of monetarily, how were the investors reacting to it? Was there some sort of apprehension, or did they really jump at the opportunity? Because again, this is something that has not been explored to that extent yet, right? We have entered into the realm of physical AI, yes, but again, there are a lot of steps to be covered. So was there an apprehension and a hesitation of sorts when you were pitching your idea to your investors?
I think that's a very interesting answer which we have. So basically, when we pitched to our current investors, we just closed our pre-seed round a couple of months back.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. So we were just building a smart glass at that point. But even though we were building a smart glass, we were not pitching ourselves as a smart glass company.
Okay.
We were pitching ourselves as an environment perception systems developer. So in a nutshell, environment perception systems are systems that can help humans and machines better understand the world around them. So if you see about it like a TriNet or a smart glass, or multiple whole segment of devices can come under this umbrella. So that's what we were pitching to investors, and they were also kind of captivated by that whole idea rather than tied to a particular product. And TriNet itself as a product line we launched it after we closed our funding round.
Right.
So it's a product very recent product line, so to speak.
All right. Rishabh, you started by trying to help people who can't really see the world, who are visually impaired, they're not able to see clearly. And I believe personally that's a very, very humane mission, right? How do you hold that alongside building infrastructure that could eventually possibly automate physical labor?
So when we started out with building smart glasses for visually impaired people, we were kind of during that time, of course, there weren't smart glasses around. We started this 4 years back in college. We had not formed a company yet. And when we were doing, we kind of did this problem statement analysis on what are the difficulties faced by visually impaired people. And an interesting thing which we realize is that when you talk to visually impaired people, they say we want something which everyone uses. So essentially trying to build a product just for a niche accessible use case. The people expect to use something which the general audience uses. So for example, an iPhone. Now, iPhone does not market it as a product for just visually impaired people, right? But it does have a lot of accessible features. So then we kind of shifted that, we should have like a broader vision when we are using these smart glasses for everyone. And then because when we kind of position that way, the scales increases, so the costs come down, and then more people can afford these glasses, and the better we'll be able to support with them. So that's how kind of this journey panned out.
All right. Interesting.
Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. No, it did. It certainly did. Since we are on that topic, I also want to talk about, the economics of human intelligence.
Right.
So when, every robot that stocks a shelf, folds a cloth, does your chores for you, or assembles a product, or assists a worker, it must first learn how humans perform that particular task in the world. Yes. Now, if human behavior, the behavior by itself becomes the training data, who really is creating the value here? That I believe that there is an ambiguity around it. It's a conversation, it's a debate that is continuing since the start of AI. What is, from your perspective, from someone who is on the hardware aspect of it, who is really creating the value there?
So in the data creation space, these data companies who just collect data, strap around our devices and collect data, they kind of hold the IP for the data, and then they sell this data to the robotics companies to train the model. I feel the end value still lies with the robotics company, because data also does have a shelf life. For example, if my robot has learned how to fold the clothes, more data on how folding clothes is useless for me. And right now, in fact, we have reached at a certain age, certain stage, that once you have pre-trained these models, you can one-shot them. What that means is that instead of having hours of data for a particular task, just like demonstrating it once, the robot can learn it really well. So that is...
And I think there are different layers of data value also. So there are data that can be really commoditized, like folding clothes. You can't have like the world's best cloth folder or something like that. But you can have a world's best lawyer or a world's best doctor or things like that.
Fair.
And there are in fact data labs who are getting like really expert people there and asking them to train data or train models. And there are some startups out there who they are not in the robotic space but in other sort of data, who are like enabling celebrities to make a virtual likeness and license their likeness to different brands. So I think that sort of thing would come for very valuable data, like very rare to find skill, as Rishabh was mentioning. But other skills like folding clothes or washing dishes, which can be commoditized, will get commoditized. So that can be done by most robots. And very specialty tasks or very rare tasks would have a premium. And that could potentially be licensed by the experts who are involved in training. That's
all right. Thank you for explaining that with so much clarity, Sriraj. Given the current scenario, with the speed at which this industry has unfurled, the sheer pace of it, would you say that entirely new industries could sort of emerge around behavioral data collection? Do you see something like that happening in the near future? Even if it's not near future, maybe, 10 years, 20 years down the line?
Yeah, I think that has been happening since a long time. Because your Instagram is collecting data about you and learning. It knows much about you. In fact, we kind of feel very spooky because we're talking about something and then we see an Instagram.
You immediately see an Instagram ad on it.
So that has always been the case, and people say data is gold. So I think
Okay, so you're saying that there are proper full-flourished industries that could emerge.
Yes, definitely. Because even when AI came about, coding tools, coding became kind of commoditized. Whoever can kind of articulate their idea well, a computer can code. And there came about a lot of companies, a plethora of companies which are not actually useful. But then still, we feel that once we have robots which can do a lot of our menial tasks, then humans can spend that time thinking something better, and we'll have many more industries.
Interesting. One thing that I also want to talk about here is, what are the lessons that, the broader AI industry can really learn in terms of designing for accessibility first? For example, you came up with this after you guys really brainstormed on how there is a certain obstacle when it comes to, visually impaired people and how they are going about their daily chores. You found a gap. You found that there was an accessibility issue, and you build on top of it.
Right.
You came up with a product this fantastic, and which is obviously, like I said, revolutionizing, right? What are the lessons you as young founders do you think can the broader AI industry learn in terms of designing accessibility first?
So when we talk about accessibility, we usually tend to say that it's built for persons with some sort of disabilities, etc. But the idea is that accessibility means that it's built for everyone. Exactly. So that's a very interesting lesson our customers themselves taught us. So when we are building smart glass, initially we want to build it specifically for persons with visual impairments. But our users themselves told us that you should build this for everyone, not specifically for us, so that it can cover their requirements as well, but it can meet everyone's requirements. So it will be a very universally designed product, so to speak. Okay. So in terms of AI is sort of a great level. So if we talk in terms of making a website accessible, for example, you can just ask a AI who is designing a website to add some or follow some accessibility guidelines, and it can really do it. And since we were involved more in accessibility for the physical world, that also becomes more and more important, because when we make a city more accessible, it becomes not only accommodating to persons with any sort of physical disabilities, it also becomes accommodating to all kind of citizens. So for example, when you are walking in a footpath, if the footpath is broken, I cannot walk properly, even if I don't have any disabilities, but I still cannot walk properly, or I cannot carry a suitcase with me. But if that footpath is properly built, a wheelchair user can use it properly, a suitcase user can use it properly.
So basically what you're saying, and this is something that I was just about to speak on, you're saying that products built for accessibility could ultimately improve experiences for the broader public and not just a particular community.
Exactly.
Right. So to give an example for our smart glasses itself, so once Ray-Ban Meta came about, a lot of visually impaired people started using Ray-Ban Meta glasses. But then Ray-Ban Meta, when they were making these glasses, they did not have this use case in mind. They majorly made it for the photo video shooting use case. And therefore there is still kind of a few kind of problem statements which Ray-Ban Meta cannot solve. For example, the battery life in these glasses are very low. But if I am a person who is dependent on these glasses for my day-to-day needs, I need to have like an all-day battery life. And therefore, when we are building our hardware, we kind of take that into consideration, because we now have very, very tight constraints, and we need high battery life, but at the same time, we need low latency answers. We need good resolution of photo because we need to capture text. So when we are building this good of a hardware for the visually impaired people, that directly translates to me using that hardware for my day-to-day contextualization. So building for accessibility gets you built the best hardware, and once your hardware is accessible, you can use it for the mass audience.
All right. I also want to talk about the future of human AI interaction here while we are on the topic, because I believe for decades computing moved from desktops to smartphones. That was one wave that we all witnessed to, right? Would you say that smart glasses and ambient AI systems could be the next computing platform?
Yes, definitely. There are still caveats to it, related to privacy, etc. But we do have ways in which to tackle them. Because right now, when you have your smartphone or your computer, these devices are not there with you all the time. They're not kind of seeing what you're seeing throughout the day. They don't have context about whom did you meet, what did you talk about. or what are the meetings that you had. But then if you had like a personal assistant with you who knows all this, you can kind of delegate a lot of menial tasks like mailing some people or texting someone to the AI.
But which also brings me to my next question here, Rishabh. What needs to really happen before, AI assisted could truly become useful throughout the day rather than only when, open a certain app?
Right. So for that, technology wise, of course, the hardware needs to be optimized, as I was talking about. You need to have like an all-day battery life, low latency communication between your companion computer and smart glasses, as well as the software needs to be much more real time. Right now, if I click a photo and ask question to any AI, it still has that latency to answer. And even like a 3-second latency for people feels very sluggish. So there is still a way for people to develop real-time solutions, and we need very, very tight hardware-software integration. So hardware, people think right now, they tell us smart glasses solve problem. There are lots of smart glasses, Chinese glasses. But then we still think there's a lot to kind of optimize the hardware.
Certainly. Sriraj, from your lens, what does an ideal human AI interface really look like 10 years from now?
So, may not be 10 years from now, but a perfect human, because if we think about the human machine or human AI interface, it's like a machine and humans are becoming closer and closer. So, ultimate would be some sort of implant, like, Elon Musk is building Neuralink, which is actually implanted inside you and directly interfaces with the human. But still, we are, again, a lot of years away from that because due to medical regulations and whatnot. So I think the closest we can come before getting into the invasive technology is smart glasses. The smart glass, if you think it's located on the face, where most of our sense organs are also located. So the cameras are analogous to the eyes, the speakers are analogous to the ears, and it also has a microphone analogous to the ears or mouth, as you can see. So that kind of analogy brings smart glasses as sort of a perfect companion for a medium for human AI interaction. And I think we should focus more on making smart glasses more and more comfortable and integrable to daily life.
Would you say, again, not to put a number on it, but 5 years from now, what do you think the success for physical AI would look like? Will the biggest breakthroughs be from, would it be from humanoid robots? Would it be via wearables? How does it look like?
I think we should weigh through the net benefit to humanity, like how humanity net benefits. And if you think about robots or how robots have been positively affecting people, so there are companies who are using robots to eliminate manual scavenging and things like that, which are dangerous or undesirable to be done by humans. So those kind of problems need to be eliminated by robots and physical AI as a broader thing. And of course, when we talk about our own product, which is smart glasses, it will first help persons with visual impairments. Then it could also be used by persons with memory impairments, elderly people, etc. As and when the technology matures more and more. So, yeah.
All right. I want to go back a little bit, and I really want to understand from you guys, what was the hardest engineering challenge that you faced while you were building TriNet?
Right. So one interesting thing which we faced while building TriNet is we were of course testing this extensively in Bangalore. And Bangalore weather is awesome, it's cold, etc. But then we kind of we sold it to a customer in Rajasthan, peak summer, 50 degrees ambient. And they were using this for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, we got some complaints that, our devices are not turning on. And we were very surprised because we have done a lot of extensive testings here. So then we realized that actually, because of the heat for 3 weeks, we had not added any thermal safety to our device. And generally in GoPro or any commercial device, you have thermal safety. And if you reach a particular temperature, shut off automatically. But our device were efficiently, recording for HD, 30 FPS for 8 hours a day at 50 degree ambient. And therefore, after 3 weeks, they just went off. So we kind of learned that way, testing in production kind of thing.
Certainly. You do throw darts and see what sticks.
So that was one challenge. And then we kind of iterated through our board. And right now it runs very cool, even in very hot environments.
All right.
This is one of the challenges.
Interesting. Yeah. You also spoke about how this has certain advantages over, say, a GoPro.
Right.
I just want to understand from you, what is the difference really in terms of what TriNet would capture and what a GoPro would capture in the same situation?
Right. So GoPro is of course made like an action camera module. So it has a inbuilt battery and it has a casing for it, and it'll record very high 4K resolution. But then for collecting data, of course, mono RGB was how people started with, just collecting with one camera. But then you want to collect with different modalities. You want to add a mono, you want to add 2 wrist cams to your arms. You also want to add a camera to your chest. You want to add a camera to the desk, exo camera. So the more data kind of you give to the robot, the better it learns.
Okay.
And this does not scale up with GoPro that well, because you have so many GoPros.
Yeah.
Firstly, of course, they are very costly. And then you'll have to software sync them, which is again very bad to do manually. So that is where kind of our device scales, and you can connect n number of Trinit cameras together, and they'll all sync wirelessly. Another advantage which you're talking about is of course the weight. GoPro will weigh
30 to 40
around
grams,
160 grams. This will weigh 40 grams. So you won't really feel it.
That's quite a stark difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I also want to bring in the contextual intelligence part of the conversation here, because many AI systems, they do understand the language, but far fewer really understand the context behind it. Right? How do you think about environment perception as a missing layer in artificial intelligence?
Right, so that is exactly one of our problem statements which we aim to solve with our smart glasses, to give it more and more context to help you better. So that next time I want to ask AI something about what I ate yesterday, I don't have to type that I ate this at this time, etc.
It's something that it's doing on its own.
Yes. So the more context it gives, the better it's able to assist me. So that is of course a very known problem in AI. They call it context-aware intelligence. So the more context you give to the AI, the better answers you get.
From your experience, what does it really take for machines to move from responding to commands to really understanding the situation, understanding the context behind it?
We call it something called a promptless assistant. So right now,
what do you call it?
Promptless assistant.
Promptless assistance. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So if we think about the AI or chatbots which you are using today, you have to manually prompt it. You have to click a photo, which adds like a whole lot of friction and whatnot. So the idea is to make the AI so intelligent and so helpful that is able to understand that you need assistance in this particular scenario.
Without you nudging it.
Yes.
Okay.
And it will automatically take action. For example, to give you an example, if we are talking about assistive technology for officially embedded users, when they are out and about, let's say they are waiting to catch a bus. So when they're waiting to catch a bus, their big problem they face is like to identify the bus numbers when the bus comes in front of them. So the AI should automatically understand that, okay, they are standing in the bus stand, they are waiting for a bus. Therefore, I need to, do this kind of number matching against whatever vehicle is coming in front of me. And then it automatically tells the user without the user having to ask, okay, is my bus in front of me? Okay, is my bus in front of me? So they don't have to repeatedly prompt it. The AI automatically understands the scenario and keeps a lookout for, how can I help my user? So that kind of prompt assistance is going to be a big leap in this AI or human AI interaction, so to speak. And that's what we are also heading towards with, because when we add more sensors and more context to the AI, it can also take a better call. But of course, with wearables, there are other limiting factors, like we have to be mindful of battery, we have to be mindful of the the temperature, the working conditions, etc. And within that, all those limiting factors, how much of this prompt assistant we can implement is the challenge which we are addressing.
Certainly, when it comes to the future of human AI interaction, I believe contextual intelligence plays a huge part in it. Would you say that we are on the right paths? I mean, especially given the current models that are out there in the market right now, do you think that we are moving in the right direction fast enough?
Right. I mean, so one of the things which needs to solve to actually get context intelligence is that firstly, your hardware needs to be optimized. You need to have good battery life if you're recording all day context. And the models themselves have to be very compute efficient. Because taking on Shia's example, if the AI needs to continuously analyze where the bus is, etc. Right now you'll burn through a lot of tokens doing that same task. So as and when kind of people build cheaper and cheaper models, there are more and more open source models and something called quantized models which can run on the edge. So as hardware improves, these things will be more possible. They're not possible right now.
Okay.
But that is where we are heading towards, and yes, we are heading towards that.
Sure. Thank you for that candid answer, Rishabh. In the interest of time, I want to wrap this segment. But before that, I just want last few questions. And this is for the both of you, okay? 5 years from now, when, we haven't really, we could be looking at humanoids that are making a breakthrough. We could be looking at a wearable that could be making a breakthrough. Or would you say there is also something that we haven't really put a name to it, we haven't put a tag to it, that could be a breakthrough as well? For you as young founders again, what does success for physical AI look like in this country?
I think when we talk about in the Indian scenario, India has been very successful in democratizing technology. For example, recently there was the Skye rocket launch.
Yes.
So Indian space tech especially has been how to make more and more cost efficient or capex efficient technology, and that impacts down the line as well. So that kind of aim or target is, I think, what we as a country should be aiming for. How to make the distribution cheaper, more accessible to more and more people. Therefore, it can affect their lives also more in a positive manner. So rather than trying to run to be first in the race, to be the first in the world to build a humanoid or whatever, we should be the first in the world to make it accessible to a lot of people or make it positively impact a lot of lives.
Absolutely, very well said. Very well said. Certainly. There's also a bigger question that I would like to put forth here. If robots, they end up learning our ways, they end up learning how the world works from Indian environments, and Indian workers wearing those wearable devices built in HSR layout, what do you think India should get from that?
I think we should have, of course, the IP for the data which we kind of are selling to these companies. So there should be more laws around that. Not sure much about that, but that could be there. But I think, as I said, we in India, we should also be looking at training our own models rather than just collecting data and selling it to labs abroad to train their models.
All right.
That is something which we should work towards.
All right. Sriraj, Rishabh, thank you so much for your time. This has been a really, really invigorating, very educational conversation. And thank you really for bringing this hardware in. Again, I said this one, I'm going to say it again. I'm like a child in a candy shop right now. But yes, thank you for your time. This has been a very, very meaningful conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, whoever has tuned in right now, this was a hackathon idea. This was a 30-gram device and robotics labs in America and China who ended up buying it. So this is a revolution in itself. And that is where we are heading right now. So thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Antara. This is Point Break, and this is a story that we'll continue to track.